Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes in our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by ogpay.com, we're featuring Malina Malkani, a registered dietitian, a best-selling author, speaker, and a single mom of three behind the Instagram and TikTok handles at healthy.mom.healthy.kids. It's basically healthy mom, healthy kids with dots in between. She's a top nutrition influencer and trusted expert in local and national media outlets. She owns a nutrition consulting company and a private practice. You can check her out at malinamalkani.com, which is really dedicated to helping parents feed their babies and kids with total confidence. She's the author of Simple and Safe Baby-Led Weaning, How to Integrate Foods, Manage Portion Sizes, and Identify Allergens, and the creator of 2 online courses for parents, Baby-Led Feeding Course.com and SolvePicky-Eating.com. Very useful websites. Today, we're chatting about the recent headliner, what is grass-fed butter and beef, and are they more nutritious than the regular versions? Now, grass-fed butter, along with grass-fed beef and other grass products that all fall within the grass-fed media nature, have experienced a surge of trendiness in recent years. Sales of grass-fed meat have grown among consumers and are projected to contribute to a global grass-fed beef market of close to $14 billion by 2025. Now, many of the shoppers opting for grass-fed beef may also choose to buy grass-fed butter. Other customers, however, may still be wondering, what actually constitutes as grass-fed products? And the big question, are they actually more healthful than non-grass-fed products? And here to chat some more is Malina Malkani. Welcome to the show, my stunner.
Hello, Zan. It is so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, clear all this up for me. Okay, what's up with this notion of grass-fed, whether for reasons of flavor, nutrition, or animal welfare, right? Obviously, we need to be sure to carefully read labels and certifications to understand how it was produced. Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some misconceptions about that. But just for bottom line, in terms of potential health benefits, there are some potential health benefits and some differences. Grass-fed beef does have less fat, and it has, as a result, fewer calories than regularly produced beef. They have about between like 2 and 6% more omega-3 fatty acids than regular beef, which is really helpful in terms of fighting inflammation, supporting heart health, in terms of the growth and development of the growing brain for children, really important during those early years. It's higher in some nutrients, grass-fed beef, vitamins A, E, some of the B vitamins, more antioxidants than grain-fed, which makes sense when you consider that grass-fed cows are grazing on greens. Basically, they're grazing on grass. And this is significant lower levels of saturated fat. But both are high quality sources of protein. They're both rich in heme iron, which is more absorbable. So there's a lot of similarities as well as differences. In terms of butter, grass-fed butter is going to have more beta carotene. They're both going to be high in vitamin A, but more of the antioxidant beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A, but it also helps with vision, reproduction, immune function. More omega-3 fatty acids in the grass-fed butter, and also up to 500% more of something called CLA, which is a conjugated linoleic acid, may be helpful in terms of battling heart disease, but it's unclear if this is really a benefit. We need more research.
Right. Wow. These are some pretty significant differences. I mean, you would think bird's eye view, not a big difference, but if you really break it down the way you just did, I would want grass-fed products versus, the regular versions. And if you look at the sales of grass-fed meat have really grown among consumers who really value taste and health, as well as, who really care about animal welfare, as do I. And when shopping for beef products, this is maybe more important to some versus others, but other customers, however, are kind of wondering if all these labels, organic, grass-fed, non-GMO, make a difference at all in our overall health. Is it important to feed our kids organic and grass-fed? I did, and I still do. What are your thoughts?
It really depends on a bunch of different factors, which are like so many things in nutrition. It depends, first of all, on how often you're eating these foods. Like, for example, in my family with my three girls, I'm a single mom. We eat predominantly plant based, maybe 75 to 80%. So, with the very limited number of times that we're eating beef, for example, per month, whether we choose grass fed or conventionally produced isn't going to really move the needle in terms of overall health. And to be fair, we don't have compelling evidence that choosing grass fed over regular beef moves the needle in terms of overall health. But we really need more information now, and more compelling research. But if you look at what some of your goals are, if you're someone who is at risk for heart disease already, if you have high LDL levels to begin with, that's the bad cholesterol that can contribute to heart disease at higher levels, and you're eating beef and butter regularly, then choosing grass-fed versions may actually help move the needle for you. So it depends on a lot of different factors, and you really need to consider individual to individual.
Yeah, and for sure, that makes a lot of sense, and really this
Yeah.
increase in concern for health and wellness is really driving a change in consumer preferences, right? The focus is now on foods that are overall healthy and minimally processed, at least from myself and my family. For instance, even
Yeah.
in Canada, organic food is no longer perceived as luxury food that can be afforded by high-income people. In regards to price points, the market in Canada is relatively competitive in nature, but here in the US, organic costs like 20% more. What do you say to this? And does eating
Ooh.
organic reduce risks of cancer? I know it's a touchy one for you.
It's a big one. I mean, when I consider organic versus conventional, what I'm usually talking about this in the context of produce, fruits and vegetables. And like absolutely the benefits of eating more fruits and vegetables, if it's not within your budget to buy organic and it's a question of not eating fruits and vegetables as opposed to buying organic, I would say 100 times over, we need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Um, we don't have evidence that organically grown fruits and vegetables are healthier per se. Same thing goes for grass-fed beef. Are there going to be individual potential health benefits for some of these specific nutrients? Yes, but with the rising costs of food and inflation, I would never want families to feel like they are doing their children a disservice by not purchasing organic. And there's a lot of misconceptions too when it comes to grass-fed beef in particular, with regard to antibiotics and growth hormones. You really need to understand the labels. And Consumer Reports actually put out recently. Actually, don't know how recent it was, but they have a great chart that can help break down some of the different labels associated with buying beef, because grass-fed doesn't necessarily mean that the meat was never treated with antibiotics or growth hormones. Only grass-fed organic is going
Uh,
to guarantee that. So there's a lot of details with regard to labels that are important to understand in order to make a very informed purchase.
it's interesting because when I gave birth to my daughter in 2016, she's 2.5, she's 6.5 now. But when I gave birth to her, I was very, very adamant about buying only organic, only, grass fed when I did feed her beef. And in my mind, I thought she's a developing body, a developing mind. If I'm ever going to splurge on my food budget, it's
Mm.
now that she's a baby and she's absorbing it all. Now that she's going to be 7 soon, I'm less concerned about whether it's organic or grass fed and more so about portion control and her understanding, the balance between eating plenty of fruits and vegetables.
Mm.
But for a moment there, I have to say, Melina, that I was only and obsessed with organic because in my mind, I'm thinking high cancer rates, growth hormones. I don't want her eating, pesticides. So it did affect me for a little bit. And I don't know if it's because I just bought into the media hype, but it definitely drove me to only buy organic for a good portion of her life.
Yeah, I mean, I understand as parents, we are so driven to nourish our babies and our children. to the best of our ability. And that best, there's so many different factors that go into that. What is best for each family. And I understand that impetus. Their bodies are so tiny, and they're not eating large quantities of food. And so we want that food to be
Exactly.
nutrient dense. We want it to be nourishing them in as many ways possible. And that's one great thing about beef in general, because especially for infants, when they're starting solids at that 6-month mark, their iron stores are low. Those wonderful iron stores that they've built up in utero, really, they've gotten to a point where they need to start getting that iron from food sources. And beef is a fantastic source of very highly absorbable iron.
Yeah.
So, beef is a wonderful early food for babies. Of course, we have to offer it in an infant safe form. But I understand exactly what you're saying. Like you want to provide the best that you possibly can for your baby
Yeah.
at that point.
100%. And beef and butter, those are staples, right? Like butter has been around for thousands of years, dating back to the domestication of cattle. And grass-fed or
Mhm.
not, it contains, like you said, a myriad of nutrients, vitamins, and benefits for
Yeah.
our health. And butter is a staple ingredient in homes around the world. So overall, I truly believe that moderation is key. Not limiting oneself to really anything is a great way to avoid temptation. I kind of live by that notion.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
really couldn't agree more. And, if it's within your budget and if it's within, it's also a convenience factor. There are some areas of the country where it's really inconvenient to try and find grass-fed, let alone
Oh, yeah.
grass-fed organically produced beef and butter. So if it's within your budget, great. But I would never want anyone to feel that they're doing their family a disservice if they cannot either afford it and or access it.
Well said. Well, that brings us at the end of our segment, but thank you so much for coming on and enlightening us. You are just a library of information when it comes to this
Oh,
stuff. Can't wait to have you back on.
thank you. Thank you so much. Good to meet
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Guys, listen, a new study finds that exercising to make up for eating poorly doesn't really work in terms of lowering mortality risks. Similarly, eating well but remaining inactive may help lower your risk of dying from certain cancers to a degree, but does nothing for cardiovascular disease mortality. And researchers also observed that those who exercise the most and consume the healthiest food significantly reduced their risk of dying from all causes across the board. That was our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by ogpay.com. Definitely check out malinamalkani.com, babyledfeedingcourse.com, and solvepickeyeating.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.